Hi, I'm Michael Makovsky, President and CEO of JINSA. Sorry for the delay, I had a little computer issue going on. Welcome. We're here to talk about Prime Minister Netanyahu's visit here in Washington. And joining me is my colleagues, retired IDF General Yaakov Amidjor, who's a distinguished fellow here at JINSA, and former National Advisor, Prime Minister Netanyahu, and John Hanna, the Charles and Randy Wax Senior Fellow here. I'll start with you, General. Look, I know it's only Prime Minister Netanyahu came here on Sunday or Sunday night, so he's been here really though yesterday and today. The trip isn't over yet. There's only some scant reporting. We saw some video that they showed with there's some Q&A with the press yesterday at dinner. Tell me, how do you see, I guess, the trip, and what do you think Prime Minister Netanyahu is trying to achieve?
I think that the visit didn't really begin. I mean, the first meeting was more about, socializing the meeting. It is very important because at the end of the day, it's a dialogue between two people, and it's not that the two people are coming to the table with clear ideas what should be done, and then they just have to argue and to find the middle way. No, here it is more about what concern you, what concern us, what's the problem that you are facing, what the problem that you are facing, what you want to achieve, what you want to give up. I think it's a very important beginning, but it's not the real meeting. The real meeting is beginning within an hour and a half. That will be the real meeting.
Second meeting, the meeting they're having this afternoon at 4:30 Washington time.
Yes, so it's an hour and a half from now, if I'm not mistaken. That is the real meeting. For the Prime Minister, there are, I think, 4 issues. First, and the more urgent one, because it is very sensitive, it's about the hostages, the end of the war in Gaza. The Prime Minister insisted before he left Israel that he will not leave Hamas to stay in Gaza, whatever will be the price, and if that can be achieved in the negotiations, okay. If it cannot, Israel will continue the war. And the war is not easy. We lost 5 soldiers yesterday, and it is 10 days ago. It's a nasty war against guerrilla in a destroyed urban area. They can come out of every tunnel which still exists. I don't know how many kilometers of tunnels we still have. And they can surprise us, and we are paying high price. But the goal of all these operations is to be sure that we are distracting Hamas to a level in which is not relevant inside the Gaza Strip. And it will take time, a long time. If that can be achieved without a war, it's much better. I'll say something about the alternative in a minute. I want people to understand what is the alternative and why it's so problematic from our point of view, the world point of view, and the Palestinians' point of view. This is the first issue. This is the high priority. It's not the most important one. The most important one is Iran. What should happen in Iran? How we are monitoring Iran, we, United States of America and Israel, how we are sharing information about Iran, and violation of what we think is important enough that we will act, how we act, and when we act. And that should be coordinated, because the meaning of it is much more bigger than just another attack in Iran. It might open a war. What happens if the Iranians are retaliating with big missiles into Israel? What will be the American reaction, and so on and so forth. So it is an issue which is very important, because we have to find kind of monitoring regime. It will be agreed between the two sides, which will not allow the Iranians to come back to the stage of capabilities that they had before the war, in at least 3 elements. One is air defense. Second is ability to produce missiles. And third is the whole nuclear project, how we are doing it, and what Israel can do without coordinating with the Americans, and what the Americans insist to be coordinated. This is the most important, the most complicated, and many questions and very few answers, but it's very important.
Do you think, let me mention, thank you for that.
1 minute, I just want to mention the other two issues.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
The third one is Lebanon. How we are squeezing Hezbollah to the level in which they will be ready to give up their heavy weapon systems, and Hezbollah practically will not be a threat to Israel in the future. And that can be achieved, unlike in the future. In Italy was very, very pessimistic about the ability to put pressure on Hezbollah and to achieve it. Now, disarming Hezbollah is not a far, it can happen because of the new situation in Lebanon, because Iran cannot help them, because the Sunnis in Syria are part of the new picture, unlike in the past, that was part of the ability of Hezbollah to recover. So Lebanon is the third, and the last one is Syria. How we are coordinating our attitude towards the Syrian new regime. In Hebrew we say kabdeu v'chashdeu. You have to be very cautious, but at the same time to give them the chance to show that they are ready to do what is needed to be done. We know, everyone remember, he came from Al-Qaeda, we know it, but he pretend to be someone different. Let's see if he's really different or not. And if that will be coordinated with the America and Israel, it will be much better for both of us, because we have some capabilities they don't have in Syria. You have some capabilities that we don't have in Syria, and together we can make the difference. And how we are recruiting to this effort, as well as to the Lebanese effort, the Saudis, the Emiratis, and others. So at the end of the day, to see the big change in the Levant, we have to work together and to agree what we are doing and what we are not doing. And this should be on the table. These are the four main issues. Of course, and there is an elephant in the room, what we are doing with the Palestinian issue, what can be done and what cannot be done. Here it's more political in Israel, not just politics, but a lot of politics. This is why for the Prime Minister it's more complicated, but I think it's very important if we want to achieve something that in the American agenda is very important, is to broaden the Abraham Accord.
Okay. Oh, wait, what's that expression in Hebrew again?
Kapdeu v'chashdeu.
Yeah.
Be suspicious.
I was about to say it's suspicious, not cautious, right?
Yes, suspicious, and give him all the honor that will help.
Right. I thought it was suspicious. I'm only asking, not that I'm here to correct your Hebrew, General. I just wanted to clarify about that. I thought it was suspicious. Okay. I want to come back to you, General, on those issues, but let me just go to John first. John, I mean, you and been watching these kind of meetings a long time. You were National Security Advisor, Vice President Cheney. How do you assess this? I mean, there was the dinner last night, which the press was invited to, and then you have the second meeting. How do you assess so far?
Unusual. I mean, it's unusual to have successive days of meetings like this. It doesn't often happen that an Israeli prime minister comes and needs to have a dinner and a discussion with the president, and then the real business comes later in the week or even the next day. So it's you don't see it very often. I'm glad to see they're meeting today, because my sense coming out of that meeting last night is that it was essentially kind of a victory lap, people talking in very broad and general terms. Little bit of dissonance, I thought, in the way they talked about Iran. Of course, the president much more optimistic. You don't really need a deal would be fine. The Iranians desperately want it. They respect us so much. They respect Israel now. I'm ready to go back and hit them if I have to, but I don't think it's going to be necessary. Whereas I thought the prime minister was probably appropriately so much more cautious that we've done a lot, we've achieved a victory, but we've got to consolidate it. And we together, the United States and Israel, that have now taken on full responsibility in combat for this job of making sure Iran never again gets even anywhere close to having these kinds of military and nuclear capabilities, that we've got to have some very solid, detailed agreements about how we're going to monitor this, especially in the absence of any international inspectors. Let's redouble our intelligence efforts together, our sharing to make sure we're on the same page, and let's identify what those triggers might be that would cause one or both of us together to go back and restart some kind of military operations to ensure Iran can't rebuild. So I hope that's going to happen, that those kinds of discussions, whether it's between the prime minister and the president or between their aides, but there's a lot to discuss. And here, like I just put in a plug for the report we released, Mike, on last Thursday. Not Over is what the title, our Master of Titles, Blaise Mishtal, gave the report. Not Over: Ensuring Iran Can't Rebuild, and discussing these issues of both the triggers, whether or not we have a new negotiation, triggers for new action, and then also, if we do get to a negotiation, what are going to be the set of demands and red lines that the United States and Israel have to agree together. So, like I said, I didn't hear what I wanted to hear last night. Hopefully, it's just as General Amidor said, that was the two leaders taking a well-deserved kind of victory lap together on what they've accomplished so far, but still obviously long way to go, and hopefully some of that work starts to get done today in a more serious way.
Yeah, I'm glad. I was going to bring that up, and I appreciate you did. Please, everybody, to look on our website for this report. This paper, it's like 4 or 5 pages about where we think, called Not Over. It's on our website, JINSA.org, about what we kind of look at the situation right now and what are the triggers that and understandings that the United States and Israel have to have on Iran. By the way, do you think, John, that the fact, I mean, you didn't have Melania Trump there, but you had Sarah Netanyahu at the dinner, and I guess, does that suggest a little more of a social dinner? I mean, it's unusual to have, I guess, a spouse at a working dinner. Is that right?
Certainly at what was, I think, everybody expected, a business dinner. It's pretty unusual to only have one spouse there, the rest all aides or ministers in their governments otherwise. So it was unusual, but again, if it was particularly a chance to kind of celebrate and talk together and form those bonds and relationships and deepen them, then maybe, entirely normal. I just don't know enough to really pass judgment, but I certainly have never participated in a meeting, a business dinner like that, where the foreign leader brought their spouse.
Yeah. So did you, General, on that? Let me ask them. Did you? And we'll see what they agree behind closed doors. But maybe you could just initially address what John just said about the way the two leaders were talking a bit differently on Iran, because as we point out in our paper, this isn't over yet. There are things that need to be worked out if the Iranians try to rebuild, as you pointed out, and as we've written, their air defense, their nuclear program, their ballistic missiles. It seems to me at least Israel will have to go in, and you want to have at least support. I don't mean, at least an okay from the US. But the two leaders spoke a little differently about it. Maybe it's just their styles, but
Look, I don't like this
parsing
comparison between the way that Israel is speaking about Iran and America is speaking about Iran. Yeah. It's natural. America, if you don't forget, it's a few thousand miles away from Iran, and we are less than 2,000 miles from Iran.
Kilometers, I think.
No, it's 1,000 miles from Iran.
Oh, 1,000, yeah.
It's
So,
1,000 miles from Iran, and you are few thousand miles from Iran. I mean, we are here. We are taking Iran on our shoulder. For you, it's another problem, big problem, and you understand how important it is to solve it, and you took part in defending Israel and attacking Fordo. But for Israel, it's a crucial time about our issue about our existence. It is different from the American point of view. It's well understood. The success of the Israeli Prime Minister and the President of the United States of America, that in spite the different perspective and language, they agree about actions. And they're coming to the action from two different perspectives, and they speak different languages about the action itself. It might be the same action, by the way. So I think that this is very important. The basis for everything is to be on the same page relating to the intelligence. And that we know how to do. We know how to do, we did it in the past, and we probably are doing it today. But when it is coming to actions, it cannot be done by the professionals. It's only the leaders who can put the most important limitations and probabilities and what is needed to be done. The principles should be agreed by the leaders. Then the professionals will go and make all what is needed to do. You could see it from the war in Iran, when it was understood what are the principles that both sides agreed that Israel should. It works fantastically.
Yeah,
and I think that tonight, they will speak first of all about Gaza, not because it is the most important one, but it is the most urgent one. But they have at least to begin and to put a frame for negotiation between the United States of America and Israel about the future attitude towards Iran.
Let me ask you, it's always hard to analyze Trump, and I actually think Netanyahu and Ron Dermer, former distinguished fellow here at JINSA, who's now Minister of External Affairs, I think they're probably one of the world's leading experts on that. But that said, John, do you get a sense that that President Trump probably feels, I did more, more than a lot of people expected. I defied people in my own part, some of the isolations of my own party. It was very successful. Do you think he really wants to go back in Iran, or does he most likely going forward it'll be Israel who by the way, conducted the brunt of the war anyway, as we all know, that this is going to be an Israeli activity going forward if anybody goes in, maybe with some U.S. help, but that the U.S. isn't really going to go back in militarily. I don't know. How do you assess that?
Yeah, I think I basically wouldn't disagree with you, Mike, that I think the president thought he undertook a big thing here. It was an important thing. It was not only the crucial ingredient to land, that huge blow to Fordo, which deep underground that the Israelis probably couldn't do. But then I think he also saw it as the thing that allowed him within, I don't know if it was 24, 48 hours to declare ceasefire that ended the war. I think he's proud of both of those things, the way he wielded force here, the result it led to, the fact a sort of unusual situation in which the President of the United States was bragging that the Iranians called him up and said, we're going to attack you. We're going to attack at 1:30. Do you want us to change the time and make it a different time? And the president said, no, you can attack at 1:30. And they attacked. And we, of course, shot down all the missiles. But he sees it, obviously, as a great success. Listen, I hope Amidror is right. I would, I think if I was sitting in the White House in this circumstance, I would have wanted the messaging to be a little more closely coordinated, but that's not President Trump's style whatsoever. He sees this as a significant victory. I'm sure he doesn't want anything to mar it. He would like this to go into a negotiation. Exactly who wants the negotiations more at this point, whether it's President Trump and Steve Witkoff or the Iranians, it's unclear to me. Everybody keeps saying, no, the other guy, he wants the negotiation. He's inviting us to meetings. And the other side says, no, they want the meetings. So we'll show up. So we'll see if there's a meeting in Oslo this week. But I think the president is, for the short term, very much, if there is a meeting, oriented toward that. And he hasn't been particularly focused on the very high likelihood that we may not get IAEA inspectors back there. The Iranians have not changed their strategic objectives as far as we can tell. They've got high-level religious clerics going around openly threatening that President Trump should be subject to death. So there's a very high probability that they may try and reconstitute elements and challenge this ceasefire very, very quickly. And so far, we're 2 or 3 weeks past, and I don't see Israel and the United States having any agreement yet on exactly what the way forward will be. Hopefully they achieve it very quickly. I saw a report, I don't know whether it's reliable, yesterday about the Chinese being willing to deliver some new anti-aircraft or missile defense, air defense equipment to Iran in exchange for some oil. I don't know if it's true or not, but I don't think anybody should be surprised if we see these kinds of challenges beginning to mount, these sorts of salami tactics to see how far they can push. In Lebanon, we have a model. We know what the answer was. As soon as there was any slightest movement of a Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, the IDF, knowing the Lebanese government couldn't really take action, went and struck. And they've struck repeatedly, hundreds of times since the November ceasefire went into effect. I hope it's not necessary in the case of Iran, and it presents so many more challenges, not only the distance, but the fact that Iran has still got thousands of missiles left that they, as General Amidor said, could start a significant war if they decide to retaliate for any effort to enforce a ceasefire by Israel or the United States. But those are the sorts of things I worry about. Hopefully, needlessly, because we're just 2 separate countries with 2 separate perspectives on the Iranian problem.
I know you get a.
If I may add one remark, there are many equivalents between Lebanon and Iran, but there is one thing which is totally different. In Lebanon, we speak about something that what you call the shelf life, the time which is needed to do something is days or hours. In Iran, we are speaking about resuming the effort to build missiles. It will take months to do it. Resuming the enrichment or the conversion of the gas and so on, it will take years. I mean, it is something that should be coordinated, mainly how we are monitoring it together and what process we have when we find something. And then we will have, believe me, at least 60 days to discuss what we are doing. It's a different kind of a tempo of decision making. And that will be very helpful. But the way to do it should be agreed now.
Yeah.
Because the beginning of such process should be agreed. And then it will take, you have the time. It's not Lebanon. Lebanon, you have to act within hours or days. Here, you have time.
Yeah. By the way, I'll just say something on John's point, which was, it's interesting, with President Trump, he's talked about making Iran great again. He was talking about that before the war. He seems keen. He keeps talking about it, that he'd like Iran to be able to rebuild. Look, he's a developer. He likes building things up. And even it seems like if this Tehran regime is in power, he wants the country to rebuild. And you can see the difference certainly from how he's looking at the Iranian issue versus the Israelis, who, you know, for them it's such an existential threat and they're so close. But let me talk about some of the other issues that General Amidjor brought up. Obviously, we've talked about this many times, but let's talk about Gaza for a second, because President Trump was quoted, I saw on this afternoon, that most of this conversation this afternoon will be about Gaza. And now my hope is, if that's the case, I hope that's because they settled the Iran issue already. But if that's the case, it's certainly, it seems like the Israelis want to, they're willing to have a ceasefire under certain terms. They seem in line with the United States, but Hamas, despite the press reports that their response was positive, it seems like it was a yes but kind of situation, with a lot of the buts being deal breakers, and for the Israelis. I guess I wanted to ask you, as you point out, General Amidjor, and I know we've talked about this before, so you have all these, it's the soldiers, you have soldiers getting killed. I think I saw something like maybe 20 or so in the last month. As you point out, there were 5, and there was
in June it was 20.
Oh, 20 in June. Then you had a number of injured also yesterday, besides those that were killed. You read in the press here, at least, there seems to be some, not the first time, differing views between the IDF leadership under General Zamir and the political leadership. And
no, the difference is not that. The difference is about how to provide the humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza. The IDF is very reluctant to be responsible for that. They don't want to be in a position in which they will have to provide the 1.5 million, between 1.5 and 2 million people in Gaza, all their needs. A military full control of Gaza is a nightmare for the generals. They don't want the soldiers being involved in providing food to 1.5 million civilians. It will risk the soldiers. They will have to open fire from time to time. They will feel that they are under risk to their life. It's a horrified situation from the commander's point of view. The politicians think that it is not the military to decide. They don't want that it will be provided by Hamas. How to do it? They don't care. The IDF should do it. And this is the argument that was in the cabinet. It was not about the future of the war. About the future of the war, there are 2 schools in Israel. And each of them has a good reason to think that this is the right. One is saying, guys, we achieved 80% of what we had in Gaza. We have one big issue, the hostages. Let's give Hamas, let's say that give Hamas the guarantee that we are not going back to retake Gaza. Give us all the hostages, living alive and bodies of hostages, and we will leave Gaza. And what will happen, we don't know. If will be a need, we will come back. Maybe the Palestinian Authority will come and take responsibility, and so on and so forth. This is one way. Some of them believe that it might lead to the Emirate will come in and American money. And I think it's a dream which will not be fulfilled. And why? Because no one will invest $1 in Gaza if Hamas is controlling Gaza. Not the Emirates, not the Saudis, not the Americans, no one. And if Hamas is controlling Gaza, we will have from time to time to act in Gaza. So what do you see? The Emirates or the Americans coming in, investing dollars, and we will destroy it because Hamas took it as a shelter? It is not going to happen. And the problem is, if that is not going to happen, Israel will have to fight on the other side of the will be kind of fence, and 1 kilometer after the fence, kind of no man's land. But on the other side of the no man's land, will be like Somali Black Hawk Down.
Mhm.
It will be totally no man's land with gangs and corruption and I don't know what. And the people of Gaza will not have where to live. 80% of Gaza was destroyed. They cannot live in the tunnels. You can come from one place to another through the tunnel. You cannot live in the tunnel. There is no any way that you can bring oxygen, enough oxygen to live in the tunnels. So where will they live? In the rebels of Gaza, in the rebels of Rafah? Rafah is totally doesn't exist. In Gaza, something still exists, but in Rafah and Khan Yunis, nothing is existing. So what will happen is an area controlled by Hamas. Hamas will be the ruler of the strip. Hamas will be the one which take all the humanitarian aid and use it for his purposes. They will begin to rebuild their military capabilities, and we will face huge problem on the other side of the fence. What you will tell the envelope of Gaza people? Should they come back and live there when Hamas is on the other side of the fence? This is a situation which Israel cannot live with. It will take 2 years and we will be in a war again. Without the hostages, it's much easier, but we will be in a war again. The other thought, school of thought, is saying, guys, the most important one is to destroy Hamas totally. Let's put another 2 divisions in Gaza, take everything. It will risk the hostages, we know, but I hope that we will save most of them, and we will squeeze Hamas to the level in which the remnants of Hamas will come and say, just to save our life, let us go out, and Hamas will not exist as an organization, as a military capacity, as an idea, probably yes, but the Hamas will not have anything that he can do with something against Israel or anyone in the Gaza Strip. And then you can negotiate with the Emirates and the Saudis and the Americans how to take responsibility for the civilian life in Gaza. And I believe that at the end of the day, it will be with some connection to the Palestinian Authority, because the Arab states cannot do something without kind of connection to the Palestinian Authority in Gaza, in spite the fact that the right wing in Israel, including the Prime Minister, don't like the idea that the Palestinian Authority will come into Gaza. There is no real alternative that can be done without some connections with the Palestinian Authority. And these are the two, and it's clear that it will be a very problematic war. Israel will lose support around the world because the picture which will come from Gaza will be devastating. And at the end of the day, you will have to agree to something which will have a connection with the Palestinian Authority. These are the 2 schools of thought. Each of them has very good points to say this is the best solution. Each of them has very weak points that can be the basis for criticizing the solution. I don't see a third solution.
Do you, I'll just ask, and then I'll go to Johnny, but on Gaza General, do you think, I thought I saw Netanyahu say today or yesterday, I don't remember now, something to the effect of, we can't allow Hamas to remain in charge because effectively it will embolden Hezbollah and Iran. Do you believe that? I think he said something like that. I don't remember exact words, but something to that effect.
I don't see how Hezbollah is in any position to help anyone.
Okay.
Hezbollah is fighting.
No, emboldened, meaning, even despite all of Israel's victories against Iran and Hezbollah, it could give these countries some.
I say I don't see that it will help Hezbollah. Hezbollah is fighting for his survival now.
Yeah.
And Iran, with all due respect, what we did to their missile project and to the nuclear project, that will not be a change or will not have another colors because of any solution which will be taken in Gaza. The problem in Gaza, if Hamas will remain the controller of Gaza, it can get out of the war after the 7th of October and to show the Arab world that such an organization can survive a war against Israel in spite the atrocities of the 7th of October. This is very devastating.
I see. Okay. I know, John, we've had this debate before, so we could re-engage it, or we could just ask about, talk about what you and I were just talking about a few minutes ago, which was the offline about Syria, that it seems like that if there could be some arrangement about Gaza, well, I don't know if it's dependent actually on Gaza per se, but that there could.
Mike, let me just say on Gaza, I'm in school one.
Yeah.
I'm in the school of putting all these Arabs to the test. I'm in the school of believing Israel has achieved even more than 80% of what it wanted to do militarily against Hamas, posing a serious threat to Israel for a very long time. Israel fortifying its border, getting a deal on Philadelphia, a regime that prevents any smuggling, getting freedom of action to go back in, getting that agreement, getting the Arabs to finally, because they seem to believe that they can make number one work, despite General Amidor's thought that nobody will touch Gaza if Hamas is still there in any way, shape, or form. I'd at least put the Arabs to that test. If they want to be part of a solution to create a political alternative, even while Hamas has some presence there, force Hamas into an agreement that it has to allow some new government to come in, that they have to allow some other kinds of humanitarian aid, alternative distribution channels to UNRWA and what exists there, building off of this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, having the Arabs be somehow responsible for convincing Hamas to go for disarmament and to get those hostages back and to give Israel a chance after this sensational victory in Iran and over Hezbollah that has its deterrent power at its height, Gaza in absolute rubble. I guess it could inspire jihadis around the world, but it's an absolute mess in Gaza. And anybody who thinks that's a victory, I think, is entirely crazy. So I would take at this point in time, take my chances on that option one and put the Arabs to the test. And if Hamas refuses, doesn't give back the hostages, then where Israel will be in a better position than it will be for another year or 2 years of war in which Hamas is devastated. The only other thing I'd mention is I thought it was interesting in these talks that after President Trump had left his Gaza Riviera vision of voluntary migration, involuntary, I don't know, the prime minister raised it quite prominently at that dinner last night. He said, we're all in on the Trump plan about allowing voluntary migration out of Gaza, and the president certainly didn't dispute that. That would be an interesting phenomenon if voluntary migration becomes a major part of any look to the day after, as was the prime minister.
Guys, we have to be realistic.
Let me finish the answer.
John, do you know what one country which is ready to accept the Palestinians?
No, I'm not saying it would be a great thing, General. I'm just saying the prime minister said it, and he said we're making great progress on it. So maybe you know more than you talk to the prime minister more than I do. Maybe he's got real volunteers ready to take in large numbers of Palestinians. I doubt it, but that's what he raised at that dinner. And President, so far as I could see, isn't disputing it. On the question, is there going to be a Palestinian state? The president had no position for the United States. He deferred entirely to the prime minister for the answer. And I think the prime minister basically, I haven't heard him say it in a long time, resurrected some elements of his Bar-Ilan speech in 2009, in which he said the Palestinians can have all the powers to govern themselves, but none to threaten Israel. And that includes Israel will retain ultimate authority over security in all the Palestinian areas. And if people don't like it, if they don't think that really constitutes a real state, too bad. We're not, this is a new day, particularly after October 7th, and never again is now. So I thought those were two interesting elements as we look to, eventually maybe getting to a day after and hopefully to broadening the circle of peace. Of course, the Saudis have hardened their position on questions of two states. Maybe they'll ease up on that eventually, but we still don't have a lot of clarity from, speaking of common American and Israeli positions, on how both sides ultimately do view the possibility of the day after and when we should start trying to build and develop that.
By the way, my own thought is that maybe they can make this part of the talks with Syria, that they'll accept some of them. They've lost a lot of their population, and especially a lot of their Sunnis. Maybe that would be part of the agreement. But let me use that as a segue to talk about Syria, because John and you and I were talking about right before this webinar, the focus on Syria almost seems to have eclipsed the focus on when I say Syria, I mean some agreement between Israel and Syria, whether it's a non-aggression agreement or something more. There seems at least there's buzz about it. It seems like in the media, and Netanyahu was asked about it. He says, "Are you meeting? Is Israel meeting with the Syrians?" And he says basically he didn't answer. So before I turn to General Amidror about this, you have something you want to add, because this was really something that you were raising before the webinar.
Yeah, no, listen, since the president made his trip to the region and surprised everybody with his agreement to both meet with al-Shara and to lift those sanctions, I think everybody's had to adjust their policies, including probably Israel. It started out, of course, since the fall of the collapse of the Assad regime on the 8th, since Jolani came in. I think the majority opinion in Israel was, can't trust the guy. He's a jihadi in a suit. They can't change their stripes, and they probably won't. So we've got to take care of business unilaterally. I think since the president decided he was going to take a bet on Shara to see whether or not we could draw him in together with the help of some of our Arab partners to becoming a responsible stakeholder in the Levant, people have adjusted. And I think you've just heard a lot of, I don't know how much of it is true, but there's a lot of noise in the system about Israeli-Syrian contacts, including at high levels. I even heard today that, there's a prospect of al-Shara meeting Netanyahu if they both come to the United States in September around the UN General Assembly meeting. I kind of doubt it, but stranger things have happened. This guy Shara is clearly, he's on the one hand very weak inside of his country. I think he's entirely focused on what it will take to stay in power. He maybe sees, he certainly can't have Israel as an enemy. He wants the United States and those powerful Arab countries on his side, putting money into his country, helping him consolidate his regime. So in that weakness, maybe there's a real opportunity to do something very interesting between Israel and Syria as part of this larger package to rehabilitate Syria and draw it in against the Iranians, to some extent against the Russians, but part of this kind of US-led axis in the region. Now, whether you can get to full normalization and a peace treaty anytime soon, given the dispute, particularly obviously over the Golan Heights, Israel's not leaving. And question is, can a guy whose nom de guerre was al-Jalani, the Golani, can he afford to surrender the Golan to Israeli sovereignty and perpetuity? But in between that, state of war and full peace, there's all kinds of interesting possibilities for what might happen down there along the lines of the old 1974 disengagement agreement. You could plus that up with all kinds of potential economic and social and cultural exchanges and assurances and guarantees militarily in that part of southern Syria. So I certainly think this is a fruitful area for people, the United States and Israel, and some of our Arab friends in Saudi Arabia and the Emirates to really explore in a very serious way, because I just don't know how long al-Shara is actually gonna be there. I just don't know enough about the internal politics in and around that palace in Damascus where he's holed up and surrounded by, let's face it, a lot of very bad actors who may not like a move toward Israel.
General Amidror, do you want to address this issue about Syria?
Yeah, I think that the assessment of John is very close to mine. The ability of the ruler of Damascus to say that he is giving up the Golan Heights with the name Julani and without the name Julani, the one who is now controlling Damascus, he will lose every support within the Arab world and within his own people. It's all very close to impossible. But okay, we will not have, we will not eat the hummus in Damascus. But under this very clear idea what cannot be done, a huge area that we can explore and find cooperation and to work together to help them to build their country, devastating situation. We can provide them some element that they don't have, from water to gas and electricity, whatever. There is a huge area to explore and to agree, and it is not a secret. I think that the National Security Advisor, Anegbi, said that he is in contact with Syrian representatives. So it's almost formal kind of a dialogue.
By the
And
way,
that's not to mention, Mike, the deep common interest, obviously, in making sure that both the Iranians and Hezbollah stay out of there. That's a very strong common interest. And I even think Jelani has a real deep interest in making sure he's balancing Turkish power and influence in Damascus. And I think Israel, the United States, some of the Arab parties can be very helpful in maintaining that balance.
Yeah, maybe he could share some thoughts with President Trump about the concerns about the Turks. That, in my view, that has escaped President Trump, unfortunately. Let me just mention a couple things because I want to wrap up. First of all, I didn't say this at the beginning, but it is amazing. You have the Israeli Prime Minister now meeting the third time with the U.S. president in the first 6 months of his administration. It's impressive. I mean, Ron Dermer, was, I think, one of the first foreign officials to meet with President Trump after his election in Mar-a-Lago. He spent a lot of time with President Trump, and it's amazing. And then, Netanyahu spoke to Trump almost immediately. I think even before the full final results were in or was officially declared. The Israelis have been very other countries in the world, certainly the Arab countries, but other countries in the world I'm sure are noticing this, and it says something about the close relationship between the two countries that we see now, and of course that the fact that the two countries fought together against Iran is really an amazing event that I think is still being sinking in the region around the world. Let me just mention,
Mike, can I just say on that, the one item that wasn't on this agenda that very soon I think needs to be on the agenda is that discussion about the future of the U.S.-Israel strategic relationship that obviously has played out and includes and encapsulates all the things that you just mentioned, in particular this decision for the United States to play such a major role last year in the defense of Israel, and then again this year in the defense and helping actually go to war with Israel against this major threat of the Iranian nuclear program. Israel's been at war a long time on multiple fronts. It obviously needs to retool and rebuild and look to the future. We're in a new phase of the strategic relationship. I'm not exactly sure how to define it, but we've had some unprecedented things occur, and we need to assess those and think about sort of what is the future. And obviously this discussion around a new multi-year memorandum of understanding on the defense and strategic relationship that hopefully will get started very soon can do some of that.
By the way, I would say, one of the things that's changed, we talked about this before, is Israel being under the area of responsibility of CENTCOM, the JINSA, which we were the only organization outside that actually were pushing for this, or the only one outside that was pushing for this. And I think General Kurilla, CENTCOM, who's retiring in a month, there's a tremendous amount of credit for his performance as CENTCOM commander. Let me just conclude with these two quick points, and I know it's very late in Israel. General Amidjor, if I could ask you one thing, and I don't know if you saw this article, but I think I might have sent it to you, but there was a piece in the Wall Street Journal, a long piece, interviewing, making issue about in the West Bank, the sheikh in Hebron, and this idea of he claims to represent Hebron, and he wants to collaborate with Israel. He was extremely critical of the Palestinian Authority, and he and some other sheiks had signed a letter, and they want to see about maybe them forming like a sort of emirate, and this might seem like an alternative way of resolving the West Bank, the issue with the Palestinians, the West Bank. Now, I checked with one retired IDF general. I won't mention his name, but is particularly expert on the West Bank, and he dismissed it and said this is nothing new. This sheik doesn't even represent all of Hebron, and so on. And there's nothing really to this story. But it was a long piece in the Wall Street Journal editorial page about this.
Look, I think that this is kind of solutions that people want to have.
Yeah.
How it is going to the reality within some background within the Arab societies, almost all of them, in spite of the fact that they are organized like countries, in many places the most important connection is within the family and the tribe.
Yeah.
It's not just like in the West connection, which is coming with your feeling of having some sort of obligation. It is much more than that. It is, at the end of the day, this is the body with which you have real affiliation. And at the end, what will happen to your family, the Ahl, the big family, not the hardcore, the core family, the big family or the tribe is very, very, very important.
Yeah.
And in Hebron, because it is more conservative side of the West Bank, it is stronger. The Sheikhs still you don't find it, not in Ramallah, with all due respect, they're not in El Bira, and probably not in Tulkarem, and maybe in Nablus here and there. And in Israel, there are some people who are promoting it. They believe that this will be the alternative for the Palestinians.
Yeah.
And that will be we tried it in the past.
Yeah.
And it didn't work.
Yeah.
And it probably will not work. It was a good solution 100 years ago. Today, I don't believe that it will work.
Yeah. By the way, I'm glad you brought up.
And they call it Emirate because everyone is saying it's Emirate, and there is Emirate Kuwait and Emirate Bahrain and Emirate and someone is
United Arab Emirates, different.
And there is United Arab Emirates. There is another Emirate. I said yes, but you know what is the big difference? They don't have oil.
Yeah, right. And you mentioned 100 years ago, and I've written about this many times, but I think people following the Middle East forget that this area, a little over 100 years ago was all Ottoman, and you had ethnic groups, you had tribes, you had clans, and then after World War I, they drew these. People say it's Sykes-Picot. It's a mistake to say Sykes-Picot. That was superseded, but people use that because they don't know. But it becomes like a code word. But the reality is, certainly there was some agreement to kind of divide up these areas into arbitrary borders. I always say it's like a blind drunk cartographer that kind of drew these lines, and it's been generally a failure. These are not nation states as we understand them, and almost no nation state in the region has really succeeded. I'd say Israel and maybe a few others in the region, but most of them are complete failures because these tribal and the ethnic and these clans, they're very strong. And even 100 years later, they remain, as you point out, very they resonate with the people there more than these national boundaries, a lot of them. But here, I'm going to end on a light note. John, one of the things that was kind of interesting was that had a little drama was Prime Minister Netanyahu giving a letter to President Trump yesterday saying, nominating him for a Nobel Peace Prize, and the president seemed to appreciate it. I wonder, I am no expert on the Nobel Peace Prize. I do not follow it. The politics, I don't know really anything about it, but I wonder, did the prime minister nominating Trump, did that just sink any chance that Trump would, I mean, if you think about who are two leaders that a lot of West Europeans dislike the most, is probably Netanyahu and Trump.
Who do you want to get your recommendation letter
Yeah.
for?
You know,
Your admission to college. Yeah,
right.
no,
Yeah,
that hotbed of conservative ideology, the Nobel Peace Prize
right.
committee. So I had exactly the same feeling, but who knows?
You know, if the UK the Labour leader who was the prime minister of the UK, maybe that would have had a little more, or maybe, you know, certainly maybe the German chancellor, but I don't know. Having Bibi as your nominator, it probably doesn't help him too much in the Nobel Prize. But reports suggest that President Trump really does care about this, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, of course, President Obama, when did he get his Nobel Prize? It was in his first year, wasn't it?
I think it was on the day of his inauguration. They might have had a secret vote that he was the future and he was the change. So yeah.
Enough said. Enough said about the Nobel Peace Prize. Okay, we got 3 minutes. Anything you want to say in conclusion, General Amidjor? Seriously, or in a lighthearted manner?
Seriously, I'm not connected to the price, that I'm not familiar with the process. Maybe should be a letter which begin the process in Norway, and this is why the letter might begin the process. But
Yeah.
what something which is more serious, I think that it is a crucial time after the huge success of the Israeli Israel within the war, crushing Hamas, isolating and minimizing Hezbollah, taking Syria out of the Shiite percent, as it was called by King Abdullah of Jordan. For him, it's a huge relief. Making big blow to the nuclear project of Iran, and stripping Iran from its ability to defend itself against the Israeli Air Force. Huge, big success during the war, but there are many problems which had been solved. And the time to begin to deal with the problems and to decide what is the way to solve it, if not finding an agreed solution, is now. And this is why this meeting between the Prime Minister and the President is very, very important.
Yeah, I agree. And as John mentioned, I encourage you all to read JINSA's Not Over paper that we put out on Thursday that addresses some of these things on Iran. And, you know, again, you know, leaders could bond for all sorts of reasons. They bonded in war. They could bond that the Nobel Prize Committee doesn't like either of them, even though they both probably should have won it for the Abraham Accords. But it's hopefully, you know, it seems like there's and we hope that we're ushering in a new period in the bilateral U.S.-Israel relationship. And let's see how both the countries start with how they're going to deal with the Iran issue in the near term. So thank you very much for joining us. I want to thank General Amidjor. I know it's very late there. It's 11 o'clock at night. Thank you very much, General Amidjor. John here in Washington with me. Thanks a lot for joining. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.